What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the franchise. Just starting off laughing for no reason. just getting, just having things in the background, creating some fun. Anyways, getting on track here. So, in last week's episode, I was talking about the Bruins and their game 6 against the Islanders, and I was expressing my hope and whatnot there. Obviously, that was a little behind with the actual posting of the episode and whatnot. Like, things are just behind. It's not completely up to date, and that's fine. Like, we're really the only podcast like affiliated here that really does up to date news. Everyone's kind of telling stories or giving advice or things like that. So to be the one that really does like news kind of stuff, even though it is sports, it's going to be behind from the time of recording till posting. I can't like predict things and whatnot. So unfortunately, the Bruins season came to an end in that game. My hope was shattered, and it was a pretty, it wasn't close. It was a pretty bad game altogether. So now we move on to the future, what the future holds, what the direction of the team is as a whole. And I don't know. It's still kind of new. This whole, the season being over is kind of raw still. So I wouldn't say Bruce Cassidy's job is, in danger. He's not on the hot seat. Sweeney's not on the hot seat as of right now. I think if the season ends, just as miserably as this year, then maybe there's something there. Maybe it's not enough, and it's time to move on at that point, because it has been a few years now since those two kind of took over from the old regime. And I hate to bring it up, but you go back, it all starts with the 2015 NHL draft, where the Bruins trade Milan Lucic, they trade Dougie Hamilton, who's one of the better offensive defensemen in the league right now. He's right-handed, so you could add him and McAvoy, but that's the past. You had 3 picks in a row in the middle teens of that draft in the first round, and you drafted guys that just are not making the cut, really. DeBrusk is the only one, and even then, he's not good enough, clearly. So you draft those guys, you pass on Matt Barzal and some other players that even are on the Islanders, but forget just the Islanders, there's just other players that went later to other teams in that first round. You have Thomas Chabot and Kyle Connor and some other players like that. So to completely miss like that, it takes skill, honestly. Like that's really bad. Like it's really bad. So it's going to affect this team for some time, and I don't know. It's going to be a tough rebuild, like especially just because Barzal like kills the Bruins. Like that's really tough. He's really good against them. So for him to not be on this team, you could send Krejci out for another wing. As much as I love Krejci, speaking of David Krejci, he's going to have to decide his future. Taylor Hall, some other players. I don't know. I sincerely don't know where to start with this, where it ends, and they're gonna have some money. Tuukka Rask is up too. That's probably the biggest one. If they bring him back, I think there's gonna be a lot of upset fans and sports talk radio hosts and commentators and whatnot that are going to be coming for the head of the Bruins. Really, the top. So I personally wouldn't bring Tuukka Rask back. And the one thing that like really puts that over the top, like really seals that, is just the fact that he was hurt and nothing was really done about it. And I know that's not 100% his fault, but to play when you know you aren't at your best and you could probably sit, and you're going to need surgery. He's going to need surgery. And if he's going to play next year following the surgery, he's going to miss time during the season. Like nearly half the season, he's saying January, February return. If the NHL season starts at its normal time in September, October. So for that to be the case, that's a really bad look. And I think Swayman should have been put in for that game. I think I was saying that in the last video as a strong possibility that I thought that. And for him to have just been sitting there the whole time, just sitting on the bench and barely seeing any time, only when Tuukka had to be pulled, it's not a good look. Some of those young goaltender changes during the playoffs or right before the playoffs can just completely change a team's mojo and get them going. Because it doesn't take a crazy amount of things in the NHL for a team to just get hot and go on a complete tear. It's just gonna be some minor interior changes, internal changes on the team. So I don't know how to fix it, because here's the other thing. If you don't bring Tuukka back and you have a starting goalie, not only a starting goalie, but you have the backup goalie, because you can let Halak go too, and you have Vladar as the backup, or 1A, 1B kind of deal. If you go that route with the young guys, that leaves you so much money to just go out and bring a legitimate left defenseman to put with Charlie McAvoy or somewhere, because I think that's the biggest need when it comes to skaters. I think the forwards are pretty solid. The third and fourth lines definitely could be a lot better. Obviously, you have the perfection line, so there's that. But I think of all things, the defensemen are what need to be corrected on the team. I think they overachieved this year. I think it could have and should have looked a lot worse on the ice for the defensemen, outside of Charlie McAvoy, like I said. So that's why letting Chara go was such a bad idea, I think. You could have brought him back for nothing, and you could have put him not on the top pairing, but the second or third, and I think that would have looked a little bit better than what you actually had out there. So, like I said, I'm not a general manager. I don't know exactly how to fix the Bruins, because I don't want this to be their cap every year, because this is what it's starting to look like at this point, just fizzling out at the end of the year. It's crazy how it's just like this after the way a lot of us were talking about them following the Washington Capitals series. Like I said, after that, I think they looked like the best team in the playoffs at that point. Now you got Montreal in the Western semifinals. So it's what's going on here, Oh, no, I'm sorry. They're in the Western finals. It's the Western finals, Vegas and Montreal. And then the Eastern finals is the Islanders and the Lightning. So obviously I don't want Montreal to win. Let's go Vegas. I want Vegas to win it all. But again, I don't know how to fix the Bruins. That's something that they're going to have to figure out internally, and I hope they can do it, because I really want to see them overperform and perform to their actual level, not do poorly and fizzle out at the end of seasons like they have been over the last couple of years, ever since they lost that Stanley Cup final to the St. Louis Blues. So, go Bruins. Moving on, there's the Red Sox to talk about. So, the Red Sox, as of this recording, they split a series. Oh no, I'm sorry. They lost the series to the Astros, who it doesn't seem like they can really beat the Astros outside of I don't know. The last game in the series. The first series in Houston, they lost the first three in a 4-game series and won the last one. And in this 3-game series at home, they almost get swept and win the last game. So it's going to be a tough look if they end up making the playoffs and they have to play the Astros at all. That's going to be really, really tough on the Red Sox, obviously, unless they can improve the team. Like I've been saying, they can get the starters, they can get the relievers. You don't need to pay up too much. You don't need to get the top end talent. You can if you want to, because I think their farm system's a little bit better here. I don't think they want to go through that again, where all the young guys are gone, especially with the way the GM is now. Chaim Bloom is just does not seem like that type of guy coming over from Tampa Bay. But I think, a third tier starter, like someone that could be the third pitcher in your rotation, someone that can be a good setup guy that you can use in a night in and night out almost, because I don't know why this is a thing, but they just refuse to use pitchers. I think it's just the way the rosters are being built right now and the way things have been updated in the game. But to not be willing to really use guys every night, besides the closer in Matt Barnes, it's just ridiculous. So they need to make those moves. I think they could make like a lineup move too. I think those are the three moves that can make a starting pitcher, a late inning reliever, and a legit solid bat that's hitting at the point of the trade deadline around 20 home runs, something like that. So if you can insert something like that into your rotations and your bullpen and your lineup, that's huge. So those are some sort of adjustments. And again, losing to the Astros, like the way that they have been, I think that's a wake-up call, if anything, because, yeah, you've been handling other teams pretty decently, but the Astros are just a different level compared to you at this point, which gets me moving on to the next team that they played recently was the Toronto Blue Jays. They split that 4-game series 2-2. They got a walk-off in there. Actually, they got 2 walk-offs in there against the Blue Jays. It was the first game and the last game, Friday and Monday night. But they lose Saturday and Sunday, and that first game, or the second game that they lost, I forget which one, they were just brutal. They let up like a record 8 home runs, and they lost 18-3 or something like that, or 19-3. It was crazy. So that was brutal. They bounced back a little bit. Now they're on a couple-game winning streak because they were able to handle the Atlanta Braves in Atlanta yesterday. Another tough 2-game series, inter series just being thrown in there. So, yeah, I think the Red Sox can definitely make a run here. We're starting to get closer to the dog days of summer in baseball, just about a month out. I think they're coming a little early, especially for the Red Sox. It might be here already, those dog days. So that's tough, but they can get it done. Like I said, there's still time. I can't really see them falling off. Completely falling off a cliff at this point. But you still got to give it some time during the season to see if the team is actually legit and can make a run. There's a difference between being the wild card and a fringe playoff team, and being actually competing and being able to make a run late into the playoffs. And I'm getting some NBA updates, which I'm going to get to soon. The Mavericks just decided to part ways with their GM, it looks like. So there's a lot of moves being made. I'll transition right into actually not much Celtics because they're still searching for that coach. So I don't think much is going to happen up until that actually takes place. They got to find a coach, and everything else that can happen will happen at that point. But I think that's their number one priority at this point, because you have to get a coach and be on the same page as a general manager with that coach to select the players that you want to target and go after, bring in and trade for and sign. So even draft. So obviously that has to be done first, and hopefully it's done sooner rather than later. It'd be great if it happens right now. I doubt it, but we'll see. But in other NBA news, there's a lot going on today. Kawhi Leonard is out. They fear that he might have an ACL injury, but he's definitely out with a knee injury. He might miss the rest of the series with the Jazz, and that's a series-altering injury, a team-altering injury for the Clippers. Even if they can somehow get past the Jazz at this point, they were down 0-2, and now it's 2-2. I can't see them winning the series without Kawhi, and I can't, even if they do, I can't see them doing anything after that. Although, you have the Suns, who are waiting for the winner of this series to move on to the Western Conference Finals, and now Chris Paul is out with COVID. COVID's still here, so don't get things twisted. Don't get confused. People can still get COVID. Maybe he didn't get vaccinated, which is a pretty bad idea. I'd say get vaccinated if you have the ability and resources to do so. But to be getting it right now, that's really bad for the Suns as a team, for Chris Paul's health and whatnot. So I'm rooting for the Suns obviously right now. I think a lot of people are. Suns and four guy, but that's a tough loss, especially if this series doesn't go the full length. If this series with the Clippers and the Jazz goes its full length, I think the Suns will be okay. He should be back by then or nearly back by then, but that's a tough loss. That's pretty much the reason. He's pretty much the reason the Suns are where they are right now. He put them over the edge. So that's that with the players. Mike Conley's out again tonight for the Jazz. I'd say he's not nearly the matchup of losing Kawhi. Like, it's just so much heavier losing Kawhi that those things don't compare. So there's that. The coaches, Stan Van Gundy's out after one season with the Pelicans. Maybe they can get an actual coach to help Zion, Brandon Ingram, and use those resources to bring in a third star. I think that should be their goal. Their two main goals this year, because they have to make the playoffs next year, because otherwise this isn't starting to look good. They got a lot of expectations on them, especially after the guy that was taken after Zion, John Morant, made it to the playoffs this year, and he looked great. So I think there's that kind of pressure on them, and something needs to click there. They got to figure it out. Who else is out of their job now? I somehow am not remembering. Oh, the Wizards coach, Scott Brooks. Scott Brooks is out. They couldn't figure out the contract agreement. I don't know if that affects the statuses of Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook. Obviously, they're under contract, but maybe they wanted to play for Scott Brooks. Who knows? It depends on who else they could bring in. But now that adds two more coaching jobs, coaching vacancies where coaches will be looking for jobs on the market. So the Celtics have to compete with two more teams now, and those are some pretty, solid destinations compared to here. It's just that the Celtics situation is so shaky that I don't know what this is going to look like what coach they're actually going to get. I've said before, I want Chauncey Billups, but I don't know if they're going to be able to get him, because you got like I said, the Pelicans, and they got those young stars. Like, what coach doesn't want to go there and try to make them elevate their game, have them elevate their game and just make them look even more amazing as a coach? So there's that. Then you got other places with legit stars like Damian Lillard in Portland, and unless he wants to leave, I don't think he does, but that's always a possibility. And the Wizards, they're the Wizards, but they still got Bradley Beal and some young players and Russell Westbrook there. So every place pretty much has an all-star compared to you. You also have two all-stars as the Celtics, but you're not the only ones. And those situations cap-wise and, supporting role players-wise, just it sounds a lot better than the Celtics situation. It looks a lot better. So don't be surprised if they're having to get like their third or fourth option as a coach, which is going to suck, but that could be a thing. But moving on, last topic, the Patriots. I was actually not really going to talk about them today, but there's just some news, just I was hearing on the radio, listening to 98.5 and whatnot. They Bob Sosi, the commentator for the radio commentator for the Patriots, was telling everyone the news on the quarterbacks. Like, he's following their mini training camp. Cam Newton was back after his hand injury, and yesterday I guess he looked horrible throwing the ball, while Mac Jones looked great, because obviously this whole summer is going to be Cam Newton versus Mac Jones. I still think they go with Cam Newton as the vet, and maybe Mac Jones either comes in very late in the year, or if Cam is just not playing well at all, or even early on, or gets hurt, or they just sit him the whole year and suck it up for another year and try to compete with the defense, because this is going to be a really good defense. Obviously, Stephon Gilmore is sitting out, which is not good for the defense, but it's... I don't know. He either gets traded or they figure it out. I think they'll end up trying to figure it out. But, I mean, at the same time, he's the one that agreed to decrease his salary this year to increase it last year. So I don't really see what there is to complain about from his side of it. Like, he agreed to this, unless there was some side thing where they said he would get paid again, like he wouldn't have to even worry about this year's salary. But that's just me. I don't really see what there is to really be confused or complain about. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So yeah, that's that with him. But the quarterback situation is just, Cam looked good yesterday or bad yesterday, and Mac Jones looked great. And then today, he said Cam looked like he had the best camp day of his life since he even became a Patriot. And Mac Jones had some rookie issues going on. So it seems like it's flip-flopping every day. And at some point, not anytime soon, within the next few months, obviously before the season starts, it's going to go into preseason, but they're going to figure out who they want. And it sounds like it's going to be Cam, especially after what Bill Belichick had said. He's looked the best he has looked even during the games last year, because Cam was signed pretty late in the offseason last season. So he didn't really have a lot of time to go through the drills and the book and everything to get things, because Bill Belichick's playbook's tough to figure out. Like that's a known thing. You got to know. It doesn't matter. Some of these really high-skilled players, they just can't cut it on this team because they can't figure out the playbook. So he's praising Cam still, so that's reason for me to believe that Cam is going to end up being the guy for this year. I don't know about the future. Obviously, Mac Jones was the 15th overall pick, so he's probably going to take over either again at some point this year or next year, but we'll see. It's going to be fun. It's a good problem to have, if one of them can really elevate their game and take this team to the next level. If neither of them can do it, then it's kind of back to the drawing boards, which is less likely, but that's a really tough scenario to look at. Anyways, there's a lot of rebuilding to be done with these teams. If you notice the trend in this with all four of the teams, the Red Sox midseason tweaking, the Bruins with some sort of change that has to be, like, major changes that have to be done. The Celtics, probably even more major changes that have to be done. And the Patriots have made some changes, already major changes, obviously with free agency, and now we're waiting to see how that goes. So we'll see, and I'll be here to bring all of that to you guys and my opinion along with it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. I'm a pretty boy, I'm stunning. Super speed Sonic.